Welcome back, adventurer. This week's creatures have been described as the reason to be scared of a whistle, just the worst nanny, and a cocktail of almost every animal in the zoo. So come, pull up a stool at Creature Tavern. Hello, it's me, your adventurer. No, wait, I'm the Tavernkeeper. Think I've been working too many hours. Let's get into our first creature for the week before the madness takes over. We'll be looking at the Pombero from Argentinian folklore. Let's start with all the names and titles folks from across the land know these critters by. You've heard Pombero. You've also got Pomberito, Hairy Feet, Korea Fair. That one translates to Lord of the Night, or by some locals, Karahe Jara, which means Lord of the Sun. But the name you'll most often encounter when chatting around is Señor de la Noche. Personally, that one's my favourite. Now, what images are you conjuring there, my artistically inspired adventurer? Lord of the Night? Or Lord of the Sun? Bet you're thinking of a shifty looking fella in a deep black sleeveless top with cat eyes. Or perhaps a chap adorned tip to toe in bright yellow, almost gold in fabric. Like a suit, maybe. With a top hat, of course. Well, you couldn't be further from the truth. The Pombero is depicted as a humanoid. So you had that right, but they're also short of stature and incredibly ugly. That's not my opinion, that's just what the law states. Think around 5 foot if you want to put a number to it, with arms far, far shorter than you'd expect, creating this sinister silhouette. You'd think you were looking at two different folk stood one in front of the other. And fixed to the end of these disturbingly short appendages are hands, coated in a thick, dark hair that travels all the way past the knuckle. Folks say the Pombero's feet share this funny feature. Oh, and their legs! Couldn't find anything on them. Lastly is the body, and much like the legs, this chunk seems to resemble your average, run-of-the-mill humanoid torso. At least as far as proportions. You see it too is covered in that thick dark hair you'll find on its hands and feet. Like a built-in jacket. Though I bet it is awfully scratchy. Now if a jacket made from Pombero hair takes your fancy, then you'll need to do a lot of recon. This creature ain't too picky when it comes to finding a nest. The texts I read say it's just as fond of rural settings as it is of deep dark forests, so make sure you bring plenty of rations. If it helps, there were a few spots of lore that say Pombero have a particular fondness for abandoned homes. If I were the adventuring sort, that's where I'd head first. Whoa, whoa, calm your pace there, adventurer. No need to neck your mead. You might fancy knowing what Pombero can do before you set foot in search of one. That's if you manage to find one at all. See, the folks I spoke with say these little fairy friends are more likely to sneak up on you than you are on them. And it's all thanks to those hairy feet I mentioned earlier. I bet you thought it just bloomed out the tops like a hobbit's. Well, not this lot. The hair grows all over, all the way around. Think of your socks, but instead of some lovely short-tailed wool, it's your own hair. Sounds like a nightmare to comb, but it does offer the Pombero perfectly silent footsteps. And that's a fair trade if you ask me. And if the hairy feet weren't enough of an advantage, Pombero also possess the ability to turn invisible, and it's said they can squeeze through impossibly narrow spaces. Yes, this is one creature with quite the aptitude for stealth. But it's not just sneaking the Pombero are known for. Locals tell me they're rather expert at imitating birdsong, a talent they've rumoured to have picked up from all that time living up in forests. Legend has it The nocturnal variant is so skilled at this imitation game that to human ears, you can't tell the difference. And this has led quite a few folks to view Pombero as guardians of birds. In fact, there was one telling I found that said just this. It spun a tale of a Pombero protecting a flock of birds from some children throwing rocks at their itty-bitty beaks. There's even some legends that speak of Pombero as sentinels of the forest. No, they don't get classed up in armour and pole arms. They still look the same. They're just responsible for the safety of all flora and fauna within their realm. They're the last line of defence against the irresponsible practices of man, like cutting down trees and making sure that only the animals that serve as food are sacrificed. So if you're a fan of trophy hunting adventurer, keep your ears open for birdsong. Could be you've got more than feathers on the follow. Now it ain't all doom and gloom. Accounts of what happens when a human meets a Pombero are split down the middle. Some good, some definitely bad. Let's start with the happy path. These accounts say Pombero are generally quite harmless to humans, preferring to remain hidden. Not ones for confrontation, it seems, but that doesn't mean they won't be a pain in your side. Had a table of farmers in just the other moon, and each one had their own story of a Pombero encounter, and this attitude of mischief towards farmers specifically is quite on brand for the Pombero. At least that's what the law says. They don't much care for any other profession like they do farmers. I've heard stories of them setting cattle loose, stealing eggs, chicken and honey, frightening horses to throw the riders off, or just moving the tools around the house, making them mad with confusion. And if they get in the grains, well, folks say they'll just go ahead and scatter the lot, for seemingly no reason at all. Probably just to get a laugh out of seeing the poor farmhands clap their heads in frustration. Now, if I had to spend my mornings fighting the hens off me ruined grain, I'd be kenny mad, aye. But I'd be thanking my stars that's all I had to worry about. Darker tales of Pombero encounters paint the creature in a far, far sinister and threatening light. Like the stories that say a single touch from a Pombero's hairy little hand will send a cold shiver through you, like a frigid bolt of lightning. Or that same touch, it'll make you feel like you've necked 10 pints, without the fun. What I'm saying here is you'll have a naughty case of room spin, dizzy for an unspecified amount of time. Or most alarming are the whispers from some folk that claim to touch a Pombero's hand is to suffer hideous tremors for the rest of your days. And the stories only get worse if you're female. In these tellings, it ain't just a dizzy spell or a case of the shakes you'll suffer. Nope. You'll come down with a whopping bad case of pregnancy. Aye. Just like the Tikbalang we've spoken about previously, Pombero are known by some to be responsible for impregnating single women. And yes, the law specifically states single, so if you've already got yourself a companion of any creed, the Pombero will respect that. But unfortunately for all you single ladies, all it takes is a single touch from their cold, hairy hands. It's said any babies born particularly ugly and hairier than the average are thought to be the result of an encounter of this kind. To help prevent a situation like this from happening, all you gotta do is keep your ear out for their signature sound. A whistle. Many accounts I had my eyes over say that just before removing their invisible veil, Pombero whistle. And this little bite of law has become so widespread that many have grown to fear whistling. Some even vow to never again make such a sound. And for a good reason too. As these tales continue to say that whistling, speaking their name out loud, or speaking ill of them in the dead of night, or in some tales from the evening onwards, will summon Pombero. Apparently, these actions make them all very angry. You haven't had a look out the windows, have you, adventurer? Can't tell if that's sun or lantern light. Despite these troubling legends, there's still quite a few folk out there that claim their dealings with Pombero lean more towards the lighter side of this creature coin. And as luck would have it, I've had a few swing by the tavern recently. Farmers again. But these spun songs of praise. Said they asked the creature to stand guard over their crops and livestock. Had them acting like some sort of supernatural night warden. And the Pombero obliged without complaint. It came at a price, mind. No, not any eldritch price like 10 years off your life. Or all the hair from your back. All they fancied was a pot of honey and some tobacco. And you better not miss a payment, or think you can take a Pombero for a ride. If they ain't compensated, they're said to wreak absolute and total havoc on whatever it is they were contracted to watch over. And the destruction won't end there. Once they've decimated your crops, they'll move to your home, smashing windows, breaking doors. And you know what, adventurer? On this point, I side with the Pombero. So how do you deal with a Pombero? Especially now that one might be on its way. Well, as with a lot of creatures, humans included, you could always calm a Pombero's passions with gifts. The old dusty docs I found said if a Pombero's giving you grief, then leave them a neat little parcel of rum, cigars, really any tobacco product, Paraguayan cheese bread known as a chipper, or their favourite, honey. Now appeased, the Pombero will kindly not continue to wreck your home, livestock, or other earthly possessions. And make sure to carry plenty of these gifts. Repeating the present process is said to help build a solid relationship with the Pombero to the point they become friendly. Not too friendly, mind, like what we went over earlier, but like a real good party member. They'll perform whatever task you give them and to the best of their ability. And by some accounts, they'll begin to give you gifts as well. Hey, if you do find any Pombero, drop me the details. I could do with a few good hands around here. Though I wouldn't want them accidentally giving me customers the shakes. So, yeah, maybe we'll hold off on that. And lastly, I can tell by your face you've been wondering why I've been saying Pombero like that. It's because the folks I spoke with on the creature said the only way to call their name without angering one is to use a low tone. And so far so good. Now just in case I got it wrong, and I've accidentally summoned a horde of Pombero, fancy another pint? I'll grab you one from the new draft. How's a bogwitch brogget? Trust me, it's better than it sounds. Hello dear listener, it's your Tavernkeeper and new best friend here. Thanks for walking the audio waves of episode 12. This journey's made all the more amazing by your company. Now why don't you put your feet up for a minute and post about the show using the hashtag CreatureTavern on Blue Sky and X again. There's a chance your name will feature on the show. You might end up a man turned flagon, only able to speak in hoppy bubbles. Or you could be a necromancer that specialises in lunch meats. Either way, your name will go down as featuring on possibly the greatest podcast of all time. And while you've got your preferred social media open, why not click that share button and spread the word? Let your friends know of the spooky tavern you've been sending your ears to. That's enough from the void for now. Let's pop you back into the real meat of this MP3 at the tavern. What's that look for? I said it's better than it sounds. Not that it's any good. Anyways, you've got it now, so let's have the coin. While you're rummaging around in your coin purse, I'll crack on with our second creature for the week, the Langsuyar, from Malaysian folklore. The Langsuyar, or Langsuyar, is a subspecies of vampire, created not from a scandalous nibble on the neck. They don't strike deals with demons or swap blood for a chance to escape the mortal coil. Langsuyar are born from far more traumatic means. Steady yourself for this one, adventurer. The origin story is a truly dark one. Law states, when a woman dies while pregnant or during childbirth, they turn into the manifestation of tragedy. Spoke with a doctor a few months ago. said she'd seen the change with her own eyes. Says the mother survived, but the babe came out stillborn. The room fell silent as everyone came to understand the situation. Suddenly, the mother clapped her hands and flew right out the window, shrieking the entire time, till she settled on a nearby tree. And that's how it goes with this creature. The stories I found differ in numerous ways, but they always ended the same. Death, silence, then the tortured scream of overwhelming loss. After such a traumatic start, I wouldn't blame you for thinking this creature's going to look like hell. And you just went through it after all. Well, much like your earlier assumption, you couldn't be further from the truth. Langsuyar are said to be women of dazzling beauty, with thick shimmering black hair that reaches down to their ankles. Doesn't matter what they had before. Could have been a blonde bob, or curly red locks. Once the transformation takes, it all changes. They're also said to possess rather long nails. Some might even call them incredibly long. And what I found most curious was that every account, whether written or told face to face, said Langsuyar have a hole in the back of their neck. For what purpose we'll get to later, but for now, know that they've got a new creepy little crack, often hidden by their long flowing locks, and they're always known to wear robes with a particular eye for green. If you happen to know the reason behind this, do let me know, adventurer. I couldn't find a single explanation. And fun fact, Langsuyar are associated with a poisonous tree known as the Tengus tree, and woodcutters who harvest these must undergo an elaborate exorcism in order to protect them against a haunting from this tragic flying beauty. Now, their association with trees doesn't come from nowhere. It stems from one of their favourite environments, the deep, dense forests of Malaysia. So if you fancy uncovering the mystery of those green robes, you should head there first, my fashion-forward adventurer. But if you're not jumping for joy at the idea of heading into a thick, dark brush of woods with a flying vampire honing on you, then all you gotta do is get your party ready for a night on the town. If they ain't in the woods, law states you'll find Langsuyar haunting their local human village. So when the moon's high and the land's bathed in that signature yellow glow, keep your eyes to the sky, lest your night end with you swept off your feet. And not in a good way. I'm sure it wouldn't surprise you to know, like Europe's first vampire, Abertak, another creature we previously covered, this vampire enjoys the taste of blood. Can't get enough of this stuff. And she's happy to chomp down on humans of all creed to get her lips on that scarlet sauce. But the blood she craves the most is that from a newborn baby. Folks suspect this desire is tied to the tragic loss that first caused the monster morphing mechanism. Without a child of her own, she seeks connection with any newborn she can sink her teeth, or rather her neck, into. You remember that curious cavity I mentioned earlier? It ain't just a fun and easy way to eat your hair in secret. It's also a very awkward blood extraction tool. Law's pretty slim on how exactly a Langsuyar manages to leverage this unique mouth. Some say a leech-like tendril slinks out from the hole, slithering over the Langsuyar's shoulder like a skinless snake, attaching itself to the unfortunate little soul. Others take a more unusual stance. They scoff at the idea of a flesh snake, instead choosing to believe the new mouth is just that, a mouth. And that the childless vampire either needs to hoist its victim up on its back in some crazy blood sacrifice piggyback ride, or place their freshly born breakfast on the floor and roll over onto them. It sounds pretty hilarious, till you remember how this dead baby blood witch came to be. I can tell you got a thought there, adventurer. My baby's safe, because I know vampires can't enter a home without permission from the homeowner first. Not the Langsuyar. This particular breed of bloodsucker must have a universal warrant. It can come and go as it pleases. They're not known to force entry, mind. At least not from the books I've read. But if you've got a window open, even just a crack, the Langsuyar will find their way inside somehow. Don't forget, she can fly. So don't think you're safe just because the first floor's locked up. And speaking of flying, in some traditions, this vampire's got ties to night birds. The stories seem to split, mind. Half of the folks in here say that if you see a nighthawk or owl hanging about a roof, there's a Langsuyar feasting on the residents inside. It's a handy way to avoid an encounter. Unless the other half stories are true. They say the Langsuyar can transform itself into the night bird, and that when they hoot, that's them crying for their lost child. So maybe think twice before shaking that annoying crow off your gutters. Could be it's a vampire, mourning the loss of its only child. Now on to how to survive your encounter with this infamous two-mouthed vampire. How's about you skip the fight altogether? With a little preparation, you can prevent a dead woman from returning as a Langsuyar. And you only need a few very common items to do this. First, you'll want to place a handful of glass beads in her mouth. Put some needles in the palm of her hands. And most importantly, you'll want to stuff a couple hen's eggs in her armpits. It's said that the lady will be unable to return from the dead, as she can't open her mouth to shriek, she can't wave her hands, so make sure to pack these items next time you visit the birthing ward. You're guaranteed to make everyone there feel much safer. But if you're running late, or maybe you dropped your carton of 12 eggs, and now there's a new vampire on the loose, then you can always follow the teachings of the indigenous people of the northern Malay Peninsula. They say the creature can be repelled with a chant. And I managed to find a copy, word for word. Here's the chant of the Sakai people. Langhai Langa. Your beak is stumpy. Your feathers are cloth of silk. Your eyes are crab's eye, beans. Your heart is a young areca nut. Your blood thread is water. Your veins, the thread for binding on cock spurs. Your bones, twigs of the giant bamboo. Your tail, a fan from China. Descend, O venom. Ascend, neutralizer. Neutralize the venom in the bones. Neutralize it in the veins. Neutralize it in the joints. Neutralize it within the house. Neutralize it within the jungle. Descend, O venom. Ascend, neutralizer. And lock up the Langsuyar. Descend, O venom. Ascend, neutralizer. If that doesn't work for you, these people also say you can use the leaves of the Ganda Sully as a powerful charm against the creature. Or lastly, if you somehow manage to capture a Langsuyar, folks say you should immediately cut her hair and nails, bundle them up, and stuff the clippings in the new hole on the back of her neck. This will vanquish the beast, but not in the way you think. It'll dispel the vampire part and restore the woman's humanity. She'll now be able to live out the rest of her days as an ordinary citizen on this mortal plane. That is, if you allow her, she might have just tried to drink your wee baby's blood. However, I've got to advise to be cautious with this approach, adventurer. A lot of the records state a vampire relapse is a very real possibility, and seemingly for no reason at all. Could be you sitting with a former vamp, having tea, when they'll leap up and fly out the window, shrieking. Just like that faithful day of loss. One such tale I read speaks of a recovering Langsuyar that regained her blood-hungry powers after dancing merry at a village party. Just bear that in mind before you go giving out Langsuyar manicures. All this talk of blood's got me hungry, adventurer. Don't worry, I'm not going to pull a worm from me neck. I'm just going to grab a little black pudding. You fancy a wedge? Welcome back, listener. I'm not sure how, but you've ended up back in the void. Thanks for the company. When you're released from this infinite pause, maybe you could subscribe to the show as a thank you. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere latency lemmings make their dens. Just search for Creature Tavern. It also helps to leave a review. Let the world know that you listen to this slop. And if you're joining us on YouTube, leave a comment. It doesn't even need to be related. Just smash your keyboard, or better yet, paste in the last thing you copied. It all helps. Now that marks the end of our second break. There'll be no more interruptions today. So sit back, close your eyes unless you're driving, and enjoy the final creature for this week. Let's get you back to the tavern. See, it ain't that bad. You wouldn't think it were pig's blood notes, would you? While you handle that thought, allow me to get into our third creature for the week. The Bunyip, from Australian folklore. The Bunyip's name can be translated to devil or evil spirit, which doesn't paint our creature here in a good light now, does it? Well, you'll find some folks that also call it a water spirit. So don't lose hope just yet, adventurer. And it seems we have a first here at Creature Tavern. A creature that's more varied than its names. From what I dug up, the Bunyip comes in 9 variants, each one casting a veil of fearful curiosity. The first common silhouette people used to describe the Bunyip was that of an enormous starfish. And that's it. Other witnesses described the beast as like a large black seal or possibly a dog having a swim. But unlike the common pooch you might see plodding around this place, this one had a stretched out neck, a disproportionately small head, and a terrible voice. Not sure how you categorise a voice as terrible, but whatever that is, the Bunyip has it. And don't put down that mental paintbrush yet, my artistically inclined adventurer. The details don't end there. I managed to get my hands on some written accounts that kind of corroborate this patron's story. The way they saw one Bunyip, these documents say it were actually 2. If your Bunyip's of the seal dog variety, they're usually between 4 to 6 foot in length, with shaggy black or possibly brown fur, depending on the light. Their small heads on regular sized necks cast a shadow rounded, but upon closer inspection resemble that of a bulldog's head, but with curious, prominent ears. It has not a whisker present across its jowls, and at the base of its back, where you'd expect a tail, there simply isn't one. Now if you run into the completely separate long-necked model, they're documented to sit at a staggering 5 to 15 foot in length. That's top of the head to tip of the tail. Same fleecy coat, but with the addition of a thick mane that drapes down its 3 foot long neck. And at the end of that decorated neck sits its head. And I'm not sure how you get these mixed up, but the author states the head resembles that of a horse, emu, or owl. Now considering how unusual the head is, I bet you're conjuring up all sorts of mythical mix-ups for its body. Could be a horse with wings, or maybe top half owl, bottom half emu? Well, much like the 2 previous accounts, you are completely out of the park on this one. All the accounts say here is that it holds many, many folds, and ends with a horse's tail. And the foul descriptions don't end there. See, a funny sentence kept popping up when chatting to the locals about Bunyip. A lot of them describe this creature as uniting the characteristics of a bird and... care to take a guess? Yes, you got it this time. An alligator. So pick that brush up again and begin your tapestry with an emu head. Now pull its bill out, stretch it to an unnatural length, and make sure it's serrated at the edges, kind of like a stingray's tail. The body and legs come from its alligator side, clad in a tough hide of scales, with thick, strong hind legs, and longer, thinner forelegs. Each leg is furnished with long claws, giving a deadly edge to this tilted creature. The last complete depiction of the Bunyip calls for a large, specifically freshwater seal, with fins on its shoulders, a long swan-like neck, and the head of a dog. But this pooch has the addition of a fleshy hanging pouch from its jaw, kind of like that on a pelican's. As you can tell, the bunyip comes in all shapes and sizes, and what's more incredible is that they're not shapeshifters. They're just such diverse creatures. You may have even seen one already. Let's see. Do any of the bunyip's other characteristics ring any bells for you? The bunyip can be anywhere from as big as a horse to as small as a dog. It didn't say which dog though, so that leaves kind of a big window. And they've been reported as having a mix of the following: flippers, fangs, tusks, 1 to 2 eyes, shaggy fur, glossy fur, dusky grey feathers, scales and horns, and with a body that resembles that of an ox, hippo, or manatee. So just a few things to keep your eyes out for. Yeah, tracking one of these beasts down on image alone is going to be tough. Especially considering they've got half the bloody zoo in them. So how's about I share where they're rumoured to roam? Thankfully this list's a lot smaller. Earlier I mentioned that some folk refer to the bunyip as a water spirit. And that's because they reside purely in the water. Hence the reports of a swimming dog. And from what I've gathered, you're likely to bump into a bunyip in swamps, billabongs, creeks, lagoons, riverbeds, and waterholes. If your water ain't rapid and you don't taste salt, you'll be in bunyip territory. So mind how much you drink. Don't let their soft spot for water lure you into a sense of safety on the dry. They're described as amphibious. But from what I've read, the encounters seem to be exclusively aquatic. Found 0 encounters of land attacks. Although I did find a good number of folks that swear bunyip are reclusive herbivores, known to shy away from the gaze of man, instead choosing to live a nocturnal life. Must be the Alparts at play there. And instead choosing to navigate the waterways with stealth, not to hunt or stalk. It just wants to keep to itself. If it ain't seen, it ain't bothered. However, not every sound on the bunyip plays such a pleasant tune. There's some that say the bunyip kills humans like wheat butter bread. That it's a bloodthirsty human hunter, and its favourite snacks are women and children. Stalking folks as they walk by the river, and if it's hungry, or you walk a little too close, it'll take you for lunch. And by that I mean it's going to eat you, it's not going to take you out to lunch. Its method of killing probably isn't what you're thinking. Maybe skewered on its tusks? Or you're ripped apart from those clawed legs and serrated bill? Nope. It's going to rear back on its hind legs, standing up like a dog at a window, wrap its great big scaly furry forearms around you, and squeeze. Aye. It'll hug you to death. So here's a thought. Could it be the bunyip is just misunderstood? Maybe it's lonely out there in the night waters all by itself, and it just gets so excited to see someone new. Who knows? Suppose anyone close enough to sense intent is likely a squishy bag of blood and bone shards now. But the next time you're in Australia, keep your eye out for a horse swimming like a frog, or a crocodile emu walking upright. Could be you've met a gentle loner, or an overeager new friend who's just dying to give you a hug. So how can you handle this horse dog with no sense of personal space? Well, a good first step is to make sure you've got a sharp blade handy. Locals say you can spear the creature if you take care of your blade and thrust hard enough. Bunyip are a scary looking fusion of all sorts, but no matter the size, they ain't much tougher than the original animal part. So swing and stab away. Hopefully it won't fancy being friends with you after that. Or if you'd rather take a kinder approach, then you can always distract a bunyip with the one thing they love more than the taste of human children. Crayfish. Spoke with a good number of patrons about this one, and the law backs it up. If you've got crayfish, you've got an escape plan. And good news for you, we just so happen to have them on the menu. So make sure to buy yourself a nice hefty bag of the tasty little critters. I'm sure you're good for the coin. And make sure to take extra care around platypus nests. It's said bunyip lay their eggs there, blending them in with the natives. So if you're really not keen on an encounter, then take care not to damage the young. Or maybe you're the kind of adventurer to be a little preemptive. Take out the creature before it's too big to handle. Not a bad plan. But is it worth the risk? Can you really live with yourself if you end up killing some innocent platypups? And with that, we're finished with our last creature for the week. We've learned that a handshake might not be the best way to greet someone, that a good haircut can restore your humanity, and that a hug can be the start of a beautiful friendship or the end of your life. Now that bell means it's last call here at Creature Tavern, so grab yourself one more drink for the road, and until next time, tread carefully, adventurer. You never know when you might wander into the weird